The other speakers have been extremely interesting in relation to the World Ocean Council, the complementarity that exists in our oceans between sea life, bed mining, wave energy, tide energy, and the complementarity and the necessity for the sustainability of all of these things. I would like to speak particularly from the Irish point of view and the EU point of view, of which the Irish have the presidency at the present time, and to focus on what we call now in the EU blue growth, or the Atlantic strategy. First of all, I would like to say it's a delight for me to be back in Madeira. I have been here before to address such an informed group on a subject which is of great importance to all of us, but particularly because Madeira is a delightful place for all kinds of reasons to do with history and trade and military strategic point. It has the most magnificent gardens per capita anywhere in the world, from east and west, from northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Given this topic of this particular conference, I hope in the future in Madeira we can also have sea gardens or ocean gardens. Ireland has a coastline of 148 kilometers, which is pretty good for the landmass of the country. It's the 64th largest in the world in that sense. And of course, it has an economic zone and extended economic zone from that point of coast. By comparison, Portugal is rather bigger, with 1,793 kilometers, 57th in the world. So neither Portugal nor Ireland is right at the top, but nor Portugal or Ireland are insignificant. This is a very exciting juncture for both Ireland and the EU in the mobilization of action plans to address the major opportunities associated with our shared Atlantic resource. As I said, we currently hold the presidency of the European Union for the 7th time, and our overarching theme and goal for this 6-month period is jobs, stability, growth, all of which are connected. Within this program, a key deliverable of the Irish presidency is the completion and launch before the end of June of an action plan for the Atlantic strategy, working with the European Commission and, of course, working with other Atlantic member states, including obviously Portugal. Indeed, blue growth is so much a priority issue within Ireland's presidency theme of growth, jobs and stability that the Atlantic strategy was an item on the very focused agenda of the meeting that occurred on Monday of this week between our Prime Minister, Mr. Kenny, and your Prime Minister, Mrs. Passos Coelho, in Lisbon. At national level, the jobs and growth potential in the blue economy has already been identified by the Irish government. Last July saw the launch of a new integrated marine plan for Ireland called Harnessing Our Ocean Wealth, which sets an overarching target to double the GDP value of our ocean wealth by 2030. The Atlantic strategy was launched in November 2011. It represents a complete sea basin strategy. It is currently being implemented through the Atlantic Forum, which involves the 5 Atlantic member states of the European Union, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the Committee of the Regions, the Economic and Social Committee, and importantly, the European Investment Bank. Ireland has fully endorsed the key overarching themes and priorities in the Atlantic strategy, which are implementing the ecosystem approach, reducing Europe's carbon footprint, exploiting the Atlantic seafloor resources, for example, marine raw materials for fuel and pharmaceuticals. Knowledge, I know this is a theme close to the Minister's heart, having discussed with him before. Responding to threats and emergencies, maritime safety, obviously, crisis management, and very important, surveillance. Socially inclusive growth, lastly, that means blue growth initiative, training, extremely important, clustering of industries, which has been spoken about in particular by the Director of the World Ocean Council. Tourism and leisure are all extremely important. A new action plan for the Atlantic strategy will be adopted by the Commission almost certainly next week, and thereafter endorsed by the General Affairs Council and the European Council in June 2013 at the end of our current presidency. We have been successful in bringing the action plan for the strategy to completion, and it now builds on the priority given by Cyprus, the last presidency, to maritime issues last year, strongly supported by Portugal, who also see the current and economic potential value from the maritime sector. Importantly and implicitly recognizing the economic factors involved, EU funding for these actions will not be restricted to the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, but under the range of EU funding instruments, in particular the Cohesion Fund, and in particular the fund called Horizon 2020. The priority areas where Ireland thinks immediate projects could be undertaken are an Atlantic Ocean Observatory and deep sea mapping, marine renewable energy and the provision of a European electricity grid connector and transmission system, promotion and support for deep sea aquaculture, supporting the necessity for maritime spatial planning, and site investigation and implementation of EU environmental directives. Development of the seafood sector, seafood processing, value-added processing, sea fisheries and aquaculture. New and emerging technologies such as blue biotechnology, advanced marine technologies, including smart sensor technology. Maritime marine governance includes supports to lift the licensing backlog affecting the expansion of the aquaculture and marine renewable energy sectors and supporting the implementation of EU marine and maritime environmental policies and directives. Ireland is also working closely with the Commission, in this case with the Irish Commissioner, Maura Geoghegan-Quinn, on developing the transatlantic research dimension of the Atlantic strategy, which we believe can yield very fruitful collaboration with our American and Canadian partners immediately. Subsequent phases of cooperation should also involve partners in Latin America, where obviously Portugal already has very strong links. The Irish government has given a high-level focus and priority to the preparation last year of an integrated marine plan for Ireland called, as I said before, Harnessing Our Ocean Wealth, launched by our Prime Minister at the Marine Institute in Galway in Western Ireland last July. This integrated plan has set a target of increasing turnover to over €6.4 billion by 2020. This would represent an increase of €3 billion, almost double the value of our ocean wealth at the present time, and increasing it further by 2030. As you're all likely aware, the EU average of GDP from marine sources is already about 3%, or maybe something more than 3%, perhaps 5%. This fully integrated plan, drawn up following a national consultation process, is the first such plan in Ireland's history, with 3 overarching and balanced goals for economic, environmental and social benefits for our people. So one might say that we have been slow over history, but we're catching up now very fast. We are ambitious in our endeavours here. As in Portugal, the portfolios of agriculture and maritime issues are linked in Ireland. They're held by the same minister in government. Ireland has been highly supportive and proactive in our engagement with the Commission and Leadership Forum it established to assist with the development of an action plan for the Atlantic. Research and innovation driving the Atlantic strategy was a key theme of a major meeting of the Atlantic Forum hosted by Ireland in Cork in March of this year. The European Commission finalised the strategy action plan shortly after that event in Cork, and it will be formally adopted, as I said, by the Commission, I expect next week or shortly after, and will be formally launched by Commissioner Damanaki at a high-level event to take place in Galway on 24 May, which the Prime Minister will attend. Then after that, we expect to have endorsement of the plan by the June Council. Scope does exist within the strategy for a strong transatlantic dimension. In the first instance, the Transatlantic Ocean Alliance will involve Canada and the United States, as they are most prepared for immediate cooperation. But future stages of development will also involve Brazil, a key partner for Portugal, obviously, but also Mexico and other Latin American states. So we have greatly expanded and developed our strategic approach to national marine research in recent years. And while once a marginal and under-resourced area of national policy and focus, we are now happy to proclaim a world-class marine research capabilities, facilities, and national programs that are integrated with our national research priorities and our integrated marine plan for Ireland. The Irish government's view of where to focus our money resources in support of our national recovery effort includes a strong case for investment in marine research and innovation. Early concrete evidence of higher priority on marine research and innovation has been seen with major awards from Science Foundation Ireland to a flagship marine research infrastructure, over 10% of allocated funds, to Smart Bay Cable in Galway Bay and Ocean Energy Infrastructure in University College Cork. Centres of Excellence Awards, Ocean Energy and University College Cork, and associate partners in a number of institutions. So we think this positions Ireland very well to be a major partner with other states and the EU in tackling the scientific endeavours identified in the action plan for the Atlantic. Ireland as EU presidency has very much welcomed the high level of partnership and integration exhibited by the Commission, exhibited by the fellow Atlantic member states, and we welcome the challenges for research in the context of the Atlantic strategy. Finally, may I say that Ireland is fully supportive of the balance between the targeted focus of research efforts in key sectors and theme areas of the strategy and the more ambitious overarching capacity building in ocean observation and predictive capabilities. In all of this, we look forward to working very much with Portugal. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thank you very much.